Welcome back. Last video we do before Ohio State kicks off spring ball. A little pep in my step. It's a Friday afternoon or Friday morning. That's Mick Walker on the other side of your screen. I'm just Spencer Holbrook. It is Lettermen Row. This video, of course, is presented by Big Game USA. BigGameUSA.com/Buckeyes. Go get your hands on one of these footballs today. Gray fractal swoosh. College football playoff logo. Iconic Ohio State logo. They won the championship. You should have a ball to celebrate it. Go to BigGameUSA.com/Buckeyes. This is the actual football Ohio State used. Fit scale, everything like that. It's one Will Howard was chucking around in the national championship game to Jeremiah Smith, Brandon Ennis, Carnell Tate, Mecca Ibuka. Go get your hands on it today. Quinshon Judkins ran it into the end zone 3 times. You guys remember the national championship game? Yesterday we talked hoops. Yeah, we're done with that. The Buckeyes hoop season is done. It's on to spring football. Mick, we're going to do some bold predictions here for spring football. We're also going to do some depth chart projection breakdown. I did on lettermenrow.com. I wrote the offensive depth chart projection and the defensive depth chart projection on Friday after doing the offensive one on Thursday. Any surprises in there? And first off, how are you doing? And then are there any surprises in the depth chart?
No surprises in my life and no real surprises in the depth chart when I was looking at it. We talked about it when you were working through them beforehand, and really the only thing that I think you can maybe flex in and out when it comes, it's mainly on defense, is who you think could be the safety alongside Caleb Downs. But I mean, I think both those guys will play regardless of who technically is the starter. But that's really the only thing I think you could flex in and out right now, and I think you went with the right guy there.
And then I think, well, I guess we're just launching into it now. Nickel. I'm just so intrigued by nickel for Ohio State. Lorenzo Styles Jr. really came on the very last portion of that national championship run and did a good job in the national championship game against Notre Dame, his former team. I think Jermaine Matthews could play the nickel like really well, like extremely well, if he were given that opportunity. Obviously, he's really good outside, and it depends on if Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez are ready to play outside and start for Ohio State. If they are, I think Jermaine Matthews should move to nickel and give this team a nickel that maybe even Jordan Hancock couldn't be. As far as a pure cornerback standpoint, I don't know if Jermaine could play the safety spot as well as Jordan did there late in the year that kind of unlocked Caleb Downs fully. So we'll see. But I'm very intrigued by that nickel spot because, again, Lorenzo Styles looked better as the season went on. He needs to continue to look better. And I'm watching that closely, the nickel spot and Lorenzo in particular, to see what kind of adjustments they make to that position now that Matt Patricia's in there. Because it could look a little differently, Mick, than what Jim Knowles did for Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, I think the where it'll start, like you said, is probably with Lorenzo Styles in there because he played a lot in that dime kind of nickel formation towards the end of the season there and did well, really. Earlier part of the season when he came under that role, he struggled a little bit. Teams were going after him. I think in the second half of the season in the college football playoff, he did a little bit better when it comes to just staying in coverage. He had to play against Tennessee, where I think is probably one of his better plays of the season in coverage, where they kind of shut down a touchdown in the end zone and they were able to get off the field there defensively. But I do think coverage-wise, the highest ceiling with that nickel spot probably would be moving Jermaine Matthews in there, and that way you're allowing somebody. It's really, do you want to have Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez on the field, or do you want to have Lorenzo Styles on the field? And I think you would rather have or you'd rather have Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez. But again, if Lorenzo Styles takes the spot this spring, I would not be surprised.
The only other thing on the defensive side that I was a bit curious about is, and this is not, do not think this is a knock on the player at all. I ended up putting him in the starting lineup. Caden Curry. I'm very, very intrigued by Caden Curry versus Logan George as it comes to starting the opposite side of Kenyatta Jackson. What do you need from that position? If you need like a high motor, high energy, kind of hodgepodge of pass rush and run stopping, I think you're probably going Caden Curry there. If you want more like a power rusher, as far as like what NCAA 25 would mark these guys as in the recruiting process, if you want like more of a power rusher from a defensive end spot, I think you're probably leaning Logan George there. Larry Johnson's comments on him and that translating to Ohio State kind of piqued my ears up. Like it made me, kind of focus in on what Logan George could be, because I said, how do you know that it's translating for him? Because he played at the FCS level. And he said, I've seen the work, and so I know that it's going to translate. And so Larry is very confident in Logan George as a guy who's going to make an impact for this team. Can he move into the starting lineup opposite of Kenyatta Jackson? That would mean surpassing Caden Curry, but I think it would be a rotation anyway, And so I don't think that would be like a big deal for any of these guys if there was a rotation. I'm very curious at the defensive end spot. I do not think, based on what we know, what Larry said, unless it's a hell of a spring as far as run defense goes, I don't think I see CJ Hicks as a starting defensive end. But I think there could be, and I'm not trying to stir up something, but I think there could be a battle between Logan George and Caden Curry as the starter. But I think they'll both play a lot.
Yeah, and you bring up CJ Hicks, and I'll pose this question to you because I was thinking about it the other day. I think one thing that the Ohio State beat loves to do whenever we get some downtime, and Ohio State beat loves the things that have succeeded in the past. So, like, you talk about a Rushman package, you talk about some of these things with, like, the quarterback run and whatnot. Everybody loves to bring those up and talk about them. So I was thinking about what would Ohio State's 4-man Rushman package be this year, and I think it would include CJ Hicks. I'm curious where you think it would go beyond CJ Hicks and maybe some of the obvious guys like Kenyatta Jackson.
Well, the thing about it is, like, we haven't seen the Rushmen as much in the last year or two because Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton were so good at rushing the passer from where they played. The problem is that I don't see Caden McDonald as a pass rusher, but I do see Edric Houston as a pass rusher. And so, could Caden Curry or Logan George kick into an interior spot and let CJ Hicks on the edge for a Rushman package that could include CJ Hicks, Kenyatta Jackson, Logan George, and Edric Houston. And then, oh, by the way, Sonny Styles is a gifted blitzer. And so if you bring 5 from the Rushman style, I think you're getting home more often than not, even with 5, even though you basically have 5-on-5 or even 6-on-5 if they keep a running back in. That's pretty technical stuff for early March, I guess mid-March now. But it's pretty technical stuff for the beginning of spring ball. But it is something that I would like to get more info on just because they didn't need to turn that dial much in the last 2 years because the interior guys, Tyleik and Ty, were so good at getting after the passer from their natural positions. But I am curious if now that those guys are gone and Caden McDonald is not known as like a pass rusher, it's not to say he can't do it. I am curious to see if they kind of revert back to a Rushman style or if just simply having CJ Hicks as a defensive end and Sonny Styles' ability to get after the passer and Arvell Reese's athleticism, like if they think that dialing up blitzes is more beneficial to them than bringing on pass rushing defensive linemen in passing downs. I think that's something that we could probably ask Matt Patricia, and I don't think we'll talk to Larry Johnson again, but it's something that I think we could talk to Patricia about and potentially even Ryan Day about.
Yeah, I went the same for. I moved Kenyatta Jackson inside. I think either one of those guys. I think Kenyatta's maybe a little stouter, but you could probably do either one of them. Play Kenyatta at 3 technique or play Caden Curry or Logan George or CJ Hicks. Like one of those 3 defensive ends probably could slide in and play the 3 technique on the Rushman package. So that's what I was kind of thinking about. And then, we've already kind of speculated about what you would do with the nickel because there's a lot of options there. And I think beyond that, there's that safety spot. And like I said, I think both of them will play when you're talking about Jalen McLean and Malik Hartford. Both of them kind of bring something similar. And I think together, if you put both of them on the field at each safety spot, they'd be a really good tandem. But, sadly, Ohio State has to have the best safety in the country. So you got to live with having Caleb Downs in the secondary as well, I guess.
Darn. What a disadvantage Ohio State's at to have the best player in college football on the offensive side and the defensive side. Let's switch to that offense, Mick. Not much controversy there. I think one of the things I'm watching is Bo Jackson at running back after hearing the buzz last Friday from being around the building for a little bit. Another thing I'm watching is just which guards, do they keep that guard rotation? And then Phillip Daniels or Ian Moore at right tackle. And then maybe whether wide receivers, that board expands and it's not just playing 3 like they did last year, even 4, or if they can play 5 or 6 with Bryson Rodgers and Mylan Graham pushing for playing time. Other than that, and I know I just rattled off a lot of stuff, but that's not really intriguing. That's just over time we might be able to learn that stuff. There's not much here on this offense that's what's going to be, because normally it's hey, offensive line, we got to figure this thing out. And the interior looks great. And then that you're going to have 2 out of the 3 tackles at least are going to look good enough. I think the 4th tackle is a question, who's backing up left tackle, because Daniels and Moore are both right tackles. So who's the backup left tackle? I think tight end is pretty set. We know what the pecking order looks like, even if they don't want to say it. There's not a lot on this offense, and that's why we just did a lot more on defense than we did on offense. But, by and large, there's not a lot here to really mull over until we actually see it on the field with the offense.
Yeah, it's whether those tackles can hold up against some of these Ohio State defensive ends that I imagine they'll face during spring ball.
Yeah.
Whether Bryson Rodgers or like if Bryson Rodgers and Miley Graham continue to kind of just elevate and stay in the same plane as each other throughout spring, then you're like you said, it's probably can we play 5 guys? If not, one of them probably needs to be in position to overtake the other when it comes to being that fourth rotated in guy. Because I think they will want to do that, whether it's taking reps away from Carnell Tate to kind of rest him or Jeremiah Smith, or even just rotate some guys in with Brandon Ennis and, maybe get bigger. And there's going to be sets where they go 12 personnel and max players slotted out. So, or what's going on there? Who's that second tight end? Like you said, I imagine if they slot Max Clare out, they're probably putting in Will Kazmarek, or you're putting in Bennett Christian. I think they like both those guys as a blocking tight end. Really, when you kind of start talking about this and listening to you talk about it, the biggest thing is how's this offensive line coaching going to be? Like, what's Tyler Bowen going to be like during a practice? What's Charlie Dickey, Marcus Johnson, these analysts that they brought on? What's he going to be like during the practice? Wendy Laurent, who you talked about coming over from Dartmouth, he's a guy that I think that you talked about kind of what they're hoping to bring out of him with the run game. And then you have some of these new assistants. How is that? And it's the same down on the defensive side of the ball. What's Matt Patricia doing when we're on full team period or individual? Is he with the linebacker? Is he roaming between every position? Is he working with CJ Hicks so they can kind of get the stand-up edge pass rusher role? Like that, those coaching positions really are going to be more fascinating to watch because we just haven't seen the mannerisms or the different things these guys do during practice yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just as fascinated with the coaching staff as I am the players this spring. And a lot of it also is because, like, we're not going to see much Jeremiah Smith. We're not going to see much Caleb Downs. We're not going to see a lot of, I don't even know how much Masif Kenyatta Jackson, other than the fact that he needs to, like, get reps as, like, a true down-to-down, every single down starter. Like, David Igbenos and Jermaine Matthews, how much work do those guys need? Like, there's a lot of stuff that I think we're not going to see this spring. And so maybe that's the bigger storyline is, hey, what are things we're not going to see this spring? Maybe I'll write that for like Sunday, what we won't see in spring ball, just because I think there's going to be a lot of guys that are put on the shelf for at least the front part of spring and then get their work maybe in April. That's just one man's take. And I think Ryan Day's comments last week backed that up. So then you turn to the coaching staff and you think like, okay, what do we need to learn from those guys? What I've learned over time, Mick, though, as I transition here is when I need something in the closet, I go directly to, you guys know it, my Roback stuff. This is a Roback, not a hoodie. This is a Roback crew neck. It's one of my favorite things in the arsenal. Throw it on with a good pair of pants. It looks great. The Roback has pants. They have shorts. You can wear this thing with shorts. I'm rocking my Masters hat with it right now. A little bit in the golf mood after getting out on the course yesterday evening. Thursday, just a beautiful night. And I was wearing a Roback hoodie for that. And sweating a little bit, but it's breathable. It's light. It's best fit, best feel. That's what they're known for. Go to roback.com, RHOBACK.com. Use the code Letterman20 for 20% off. A generous 20% off your first order on roback.com. That's RHOBACK.com. Use the code Letterman20, get 20% off. That's a generous offer. Your first order on Roback. I'm getting ready to order some more stuff from that Azalea collection I talked about yesterday. Maybe I'll just drop the link to roback.com in the comments down there. You've got to get some, Mick. We got to get you into some Roback. It's going to replace everything in your wardrobe, just like it's doing for me. I actually got my wife hooked on it now. It's a disaster for the bank account, but we look great. We feel great in it. I couldn't say enough. I've told you guys a billion times too. I had it before we started a partnership. I would talk about them no matter what.
And he's not kidding, folks. Like the hoodie he has on right now, I believe he can confirm this, is a decision that was made by his wife because he has so many other Roback hoodies that she decided for Christmas she was going to get him different variations of different Roback clothes because she was tired of him just having the same form of hoodie. So now he has a crew neck and he has other hoodies and other jackets and whatnot from Roback because he had so many of the flex hoodies or the comfortable lightweight hoodies that they produce over there, which are, like Spencer said, best fit, best feel from what I've heard. Never wore it before, but I'll get my hands on it at some point.
We got to get you something, Mick. We got to get you into that. I'll even pick out a color for you, Mick. How about that? All right. Now's the time. We're going to do it. We're going to start on defense because I know we both picked defensive ones for the site because we have a story coming out at lettermenrow.com highlighting a couple of these from yours truly, and then from Lettermen Row's Alex Gleitman, excuse me. Mick, do you have a defensive bold prediction for this spring?
Yeah, last spring all the talk was about Jeremiah Smith and when he was going to lose his black stripe. He lost it, I believe, 4 practices or something like that. I think Devin Sanchez will lose it in one of those first 3 or 4 practices and lose it in the first week of spring ball. The buzz about him has just been insanely loud, whether it's coaches, sources, people on the field, off the field, or around the program, outside the program. players at the NFL draft who have never even been on the same field as him, just seeing him and hearing different things. The buzz has been immense when Devin Sanchez. So I'm just going to say he loses his black stripe within that first week because I think he's kind of positioned himself to do that through winter workouts.
Love that. Love that. And that's music to a lot of people's ears because they expect huge things from the most committed prospect to ever be committed to Ohio State from outside the state. Just loyal to the bone. Devin Sanchez is ready to emerge, and I really like that pick. Mine is another newcomer. I think Logan George is in for a big spring, and maybe I'm just drinking the Kool-Aid based off of one thing that Larry Johnson said, but like Larry's been doing this a long time, and I'd asked him about Jason Moore and about Will Smith Jr., and he was like, "These guys got to go. They've got to learn." And then you ask him about Logan George, he's like, "Oh, it's translating. Like I see it. It's translating." So he's honest. Like he's not going to feed you crap when it comes to you asking him about specific players. Like he was talking about Jason Moore, and I think he said like this is a third year. Like he's been building and building. Now he has to go. But when he talks about Logan George, it's like I see it on the field. I see the work ethic. I see the way that he operates. They're excited about him. And I think people have just kind of pushed him to the side and discounted that because of the additions elsewhere, from Sanchez as a recruit, from Max Clare at tight end, from the tackles, like the transfer. He's like pushed down the pecking order of like the transfers that everybody talks about. But I'm telling you, folks, like some of these FCS guys are just hidden gems, especially like as we're moving further away from it, but also like coming off of the COVID time, like these guys early in their high school development maybe are late bloomers. Like I think of Jared Verse, and I'm not saying he's going to be like a top 10 pick like Jared Verse was, but like Jared Verse was a hidden talent because of the COVID years, kind of pushed him down. So he went to Albany, then he transfers to Florida State. He's incredible. Logan George has a potential to go to an FCS school from Idaho, a little known, high school football, breeding ground, and then goes to an FCS and then transitions up. And all of a sudden it's like, where did this guy come from? I'm starting to believe that could be the trajectory here. So my bold prediction is that he emerges as a true like difference maker for this defense by the end of spring ball.
Yeah, and I mean, when we talk about Ohio State adding Logan George, they didn't just beat, Utah State, BYU to get this guy. I mean, Oklahoma, SEC schools, Big Ten schools were after Logan George, and he ultimately decided to commit to Ohio State after his visit. So, yeah, I have high expectations for Logan George, and I'm interested to see, like you mentioned earlier, what they do with him, Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, how that rotation looks when you also factor in C.J. Hicks. I think Zion Grady, the true freshman early enrollee from Alabama, could probably be a guy that pushes for some form of playing time, whether that's their third, fourth quarter, getting a lot of snaps in that time when it's mop-up duty maybe, but I think they have a lot of high expectations for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a fascinating defensive line room altogether, and I'm very excited to see how all of that works out. Alex Gleitman's bold prediction, I will spoil it a little bit, but you have to go to lettermenrow.com to read why. He thinks Lorenzo Styles is going to break out and be like ready to be the lead nickel, and that makes me excited. I hope that he's right because Lorenzo's a really good kid. So a guy, I guess at this point, he's a good human being and he's a good football player. I think he had to learn a little bit of those cornerback instincts last year, and so I'm excited to see what he does. And so Gleitman thinks that he's going to be really good. Let's see how it works out.
Yeah. And then we're flipping over to the offensive side of the ball. Bold predictions.
See, this is where it's fun, Mick, because, full, transparency. In the name of transparency, you sent me your bold defensive prediction. So did Alex Gleitman. And so I knew what you guys had predicted for the defensive side. I have no clue what you're about to say on the offensive side, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
I've come up with this as we're talking, and I think with some of these guys that might be held out, with some of the potential of just new guys coming in, I'm going to say we come out of spring saying Max Clare is like the talk of spring. Like maybe even people start throwing around Mackey Award finalist type of level of tight end. I think Max Clare has that type of potential. I think they brought him in specifically to be able to be that guy. He could have gone anywhere else and be that kind of feature tight end. He chose to come to Ohio State, the in-state school, after being a Cincinnati kid. Keenan Bailey, now more of a part of the offense and the game planning portion of it. And I think beyond him, I mean, you have Jeremiah Smith, you have Carnell Tate, I think are established wide receivers. There's probably not a more established wide receiver and pass catcher beyond those two than Max Clare. All respect to Brandon Ennis. Miley Graham's going to have a great career at Ohio State. I think Bryson Rogers is good. I wouldn't count out Quincy Porter to have some kind of rotational snaps just on the outside. As a true freshman, he's going to be that talented. But trajectory, history, and everything that he's put into his time at Purdue and throughout his college career, I think Max Claire becomes the talk of spring because of how much he's able to be used. Whether it's a blocking tight end out wide in line, he's going to be able to do it all, and I think he'll be the talk of spring.
Wow. Okay. And like full disclosure again, this is a guy that you saw work a little bit when you were covering Purdue. So like you've seen him in action. You are on the same train with Lathan Rantham and those guys who said, "Hey, Coach Key, go get him when he's in the transfer portal." Like, so I buy it from you. That makes me excited.
I might have sent a similar text to somebody around Ohio State after the Purdue game, just saying, "Did you go shake a hand?" I won't disclose who that was, but there might have been a similar text sent out after the Purdue game, just, "Hey, did you shake a hand or say hi or something after the game?" Maybe they did.
I'm ready for this one, man. I'm ready to make my prediction.
Here you go.
Dude, I think Mylan Graham is about to have a spring.
Here we go.
I'm buying. I'm a buyer. Give me all the Mylan Graham stock the market cap. It's gonna be me. I'm ready for this. The things we heard about like his progress through a developmental year. Brian Hartline said something along the lines of like, he was telling Mylan that like when you miss the first spring, when you come in the summer, you're just so far behind. And now that Mylan Graham is in the winter, he was like, "Hey, Coach Hart, like I understand what you're saying now." And like I think it's starting to click for him. And this is still pretty early in his process. He got here in June. He's only been on campus for 9 months. So, I think he's ready. And when he steps on the practice field on Monday, I think you're going to start to see that. So I don't know what that prediction looks like. I guess maybe just like we come out of spring knowing that he's going to be a factor in this offense, but I'm ready. I saw him play a little bit. He sprained his ankle in the game that we went and watched when I was over there a couple years ago. He fascinates me, and I think he moves extremely well. He is the kind of guy that Brian Hartline loves to have in his room. I think that he's got a good work ethic. I think you're going to see it all come together this spring, and you're going to come out of spring saying, like, man, if you have Brandon Ennis, Bryson Rogers, and Mylan Graham in the slot, you're doing something extremely correct. And that's what Ohio State's going to have.
Yeah, I think that's a great – I mean, there's a reason why. And obviously, he, like you said, he didn't get the full off-season program last year. But there's a reason why when we walked out there, August 1st or whenever it was, and we saw a guy wearing a number 5 jersey catching passes, and we go, wait, is this the guy that's on the New York Jets? Did he just come run routes for a little bit before going to training camp? And no, that was Mylan Graham, not Garrett Wilson out on the field. And yeah. I know you want to get out of here, Spencer, but you've written 67 previews about the whole spring and everything. I do the recruiting stuff, but give me one true freshman other than Devin Sanchez that you're interested to at least see move around during spring ball starting next week?
Oh, it's easy. It's easy. And it's somebody that nobody's talking about, which is why I think it's so fascinating. I think it's Jarquez Carter. Just like throw on his high school tape and he looks like one of those big defensive tackles from the South. And like, you can't explain it, but like, if you just showed me like a clip, if I was blindfolded, you got on my laptop and pulled up a clip and I had to sit there and watch it, and I watched him move, I'd be like, oh, he's from the South. Like, he is a big body, like Georgia, Florida. I don't say Tennessee because they got dump trucked by Ohio State, but like the things that you used to see from the Florida defensive lines, the thing you see from the Georgia defensive line, even like the Ole Miss defensive line from last year, the kind of guy who would be in the rotation at Alabama at the end of his first year, like beginning of his second year, like he looks like that build. And if he took the weight room head on this winter and has even a decent spring, I think he can start to push. We saw Caden McDonald make an impact as a true freshman. We saw Edric Houston make an impact as a true freshman. We saw Tyleik Williams make an impact as a true freshman. It's not impossible to think that guys can do that. And when Ryan Day's talking about we might need to go to the transfer portal to get a defensive tackle, well, guess what? If a true freshman emerges and needs playing time, not just is in contention for it, but needs playing time and demands playing time from his performance, that is such good news for this program. And I'm very excited to see what he does. I know that you had another defensive lineman that you just mentioned. What was his name?
Zion Grady. Is it
Zion Grady? Yeah. And you like him. I'm not there yet. Just because I think the defensive end position is much in better shape than tackle. But man, like Jason Moore, Will Smith Jr., Tywone Malone, don't slip up this spring because I think Jarquez could make an impact.
Yeah, I figured that was where you were going to go. We were texting about it a little bit yesterday. I think
Yeah.
I'll just say Riley Pettijohn and TJ offered to fulfill our quota of talking about those guys every episode until they actually take the football field.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just fascinated to see him throw on the pads and have the scarlet.
I thought they were off limits too because I talk about them too
They probably
much.
should be. We haven't even got I think Nate Roberts will probably be a disaster for the second team defense to go up against wide as a tight end. We could go down the line, Carter Lowe, all these offensive linemen. How do they look? It's just going to be a fascinating spring when it comes to coaching.
Dude.
Obviously, there's the coaching and the prospects, and then 5-star plus offensive tackle Jackson Campbell is visiting next week. Max Riley, who just committed, he's visiting. It's just going to be a busy spring starting on the 17th. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm excited about this 2025 recruiting class. I think it's 2021-esque. And obviously that team just won a national championship on the back of those seniors. We'll see if the 2025 class can replicate that. Their careers officially begin on Monday. Ohio State Spring Ball officially begins on Monday. Lettermen Row will be there every step of the way. Mick Walker. On the recruiting side, I'm just Spencer Holbrook, going to cover the team. It's going to be fantastic. What are we doing there?
$1 for your first 7 days. Don't forget it.
Oh, let's go. $1 for your first 7 days.
Oh,
that's a full week of spring practice coverage.
We do have to end it with our guy Terry. You mentioned our guy.
Oh yeah, Terry from Grove City. So I'm at the gym on Thursday morning, and doing a little leg workout. Terry from Grove City comes up to me when I'm grabbing a bottle to go spray down a machine. He's like, "Hey, are you the football guy?" I was like, "I guess I'm a football guy," which is a great thing to know. It's not like a "Hey, do you know ball?" But at least he's like, "Hey, are you the football?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do a show." And he's like, I like watching the show. So Terry from Grove City, if you see us out in public, we will shout you out on the show. Terry, my guy, I hope you had a great workout on Thursday morning. It was great to talk to you. Season ticket holder too. He sits up in C deck. It was great to talk to him. He was at the Tennessee game, didn't sell his tickets. I was proud of him for that. So we end on a good note on this Friday. It is Ohio State spring practice. It's officially here. The waiting period is over. It's only been 7 weeks. It feels like it's been 7 years since Ohio State took the field and won the national championship. Now they'll be back on the field in spring practice. Mick Walker will be there on Monday, as will I, Spencer Holbrook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys over at lettermenrow.com.